What scares a DJ? I've been a disc jockey for 5 years and counting. I started at high school sporting events with a cheap iPod mixer, but slowly moved up, both in equipment and venues. Being a DJ is monotonous as any other job for most gigs. Usually the client only wants the top 40 hits with a smooth transition in between each song. God forbid they let you showcase any talent. On the off chance that you're allowed to scratch and mix, you still have to be careful not to let any expletives slip out, or else you'll be fired on the spot without pay. I've done jobs for churches and the community, I've done high school and house parties, and college keggers. My rates don't change and I get it up front. Now the scariest thing for some DJs is the equipment. You never know if it'll work when you want it to. Other DJs have wicked stage fright, so they just create music on their computers and post it online. Some DJs are afraid of lower in venues, like a house party. All it takes is one drunken boyfriend one time to beat the shit out of you, and no more house parties for that DJ. I've dealt with all of these things, and yet, I've only ever been truly afraid once. It was a pretty large party. The client called me 2 weeks in advance and gave me the rundown. I was thrilled. He offered me double my asking rate, and told me how it would be all EDM, techno, and how he wanted a show. The crowd was set at 500. It was a dream event. I arrived about 2 hours before the event started. I came to the address I was given, to a large empty warehouse. I parked at the back in some tall grass and brought my stuff inside. When I walked in the door I saw the stage lining, the short wall at the end of the building. This place was huge and could easily hold 500. The dome lights that all warehouses have were brightly lit so the staff could set up. There was a large circular bar in the centre of the floor and multicoloured lights all over the ceiling. There were tables on the far side opposite the stage, and one main entrance besides the 2 emergency exits. Throughout the entire ceiling there were cages with paid dancers waiting to climb inside to perform. There were waiters and bartenders standing around, and a few burly guys talking at the doors. "Yo, DJ!" I heard a voice call. I saw the client approaching from the far wall. He was a young, rich white guy, probably in his 20s. We shook hands and he showed me to the stage after a quick hello. It was massive. I could see the whole warehouse. Lights were all aimed at me in the crowd area. Behind the stage was an emergency exit for the performers. Setup was very routine, and the soundtrack went well. He had a great speaker system. All was well and I could tell it was going to be a good night. Everything was perfect. All except for my headphones. In my ears, behind the tracks, I swear I heard what sounded like static, whispering. The main lighting turned off, then the coloured lights flicked on. The cage dancers started moving into their cages and smoke from the fog machine poured onto the giant dance floor, and the staff took their positions. The doors opened and people began flooding in as I hit the first track. Several girls who I presume had pre-gamed before entering came in dancing with several douchebag guys. As the stage lights came on, and as the fog thickened, I began to see less and less. While they danced, I realised I could only see the lasers in the fog and maybe a few feet in front of the stage. I was having a blast, and so were the patrons. Till that noise came back. This time clearer. I could make out chunks of hissed words. Obviously not real words, but God, it sounded so clear. The night rolled on past midnight and it was insane. People were drinking, dancing, probably doing drugs and banging on the dance floor. I kept playing until I heard my headphones make a static coughing noise. This time it was loud enough to mess up my focus. That's it, I thought to myself. I'm fixing this ASAP. I let the track play as I examined my headphones. I turned my laptop brightness up, and for a split second I thought I saw a face. Psh, probably just the lights against my reflection. I gave up and kept playing through the on-off static noises, the headphones tightly attached to my ears. It was roughly 2 AM and I decided to scan the crowd. The fog was still thick, but I could see heads dancing. Until I locked eyes with something. At first glance, she was a college-aged girl. She was in a pink raver tutu and had pigtails. However, the closer I looked, the more mortified I became. She was soaked in blood. On her skin looked like black scuff marks. She had one eye bulged out of her sockets and her jaw looked smashed. Her arms and legs were mangled beyond the point of function, but she still stood, hunched, but still standing. I shook my head to make sure I wasn't going insane, but the next moment she was gone. I want to point out that I was entirely sober for this event. All that I heard and saw was done so in my right of mind. I tried hard to ignore what I'd seen, so I made sure my ears were covered by my headphones and I continued to play. I was getting worried that the stress of such a high-profile event was getting to me, but I was able to brush it off and return to my work. Until around 3 AM. At around 3 the static was back. This time, very clear words after a few seconds. I heard in my noise-cancelling headphones a tiny hissing woman's voice.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Followed by an intense screech. I yelled and tossed back my headphones off onto the table, silencing the track. As my ears adjusted from the ringing, I heard it. Screaming. Several people were screaming. The main lights suddenly came on and the doors opened up as people rushed out. One of the security men ran up. "It's a good thing you saw that." "Saw what?" I replied, as the fog was slowly thinning. "The cage." "I can't see 10 feet, man," I retorted. "Oh God," the big bouncer muttered. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, more annoyed than confused at this point. "A cage fell, nearly 100 feet, crushed the dancer and some poor girl under her. Her friend was screaming and that's why we thought you stopped the song." I walked out to my car after the paramedics came and placed the dancer DOA. The other girl was crippled but survived. I saw her body as smoke cleared. She was the same crushed corpse that had watched me that night. She was the same voice I'd heard, as foreshadowing to her death. I'm not afraid of the crowd. I'm not afraid of my equipment malfunctioning. And I'm not afraid of people dying at my shows. But there is one thing I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that when I'm at a prom, or a block party, or a house rager, and in the back of the crowd I can see a trampled, bloody body wearing a pink tutu,